wasn't already a thrill enough. Justin Herbert trying to drive his team down the field on 1st and 10. Not what you're looking for. Talanoa Hufanga on the receiving end. Only problem, he's on the wrong team. Intercepted. That's your ball game as the 49ers win this one 22-16. A come-from-behind win in a game that we're trailing into the fourth quarter there. They did take the lead into the fourth quarter, but 22-16 is your final. Jimmy Garoppolo, 19 of 28, 240, a rushing touchdown. Just your picture-perfect game manager moment that we've come to expect out of Garoppolo. But there is a two-headed monster growing in San Fran. Christian McCaffrey and his running mate in that backfield, Elijah Mitchell, both toting the rock around the teens. McCaffrey 14 times for 38 yards. Mitchell on his way back from the IR, 18 totes, 89 yards, looked really strong in his return. McCaffrey also had 39 yards through the air as the Niners move above 500 and look to stay hot down the stretch. HQ Postgame is presented by Turo. Find your drive. It's Joe Musso alongside Bryant McFadden and Ryan Wilson. Gentlemen, interesting ball game between these two teams out west. A lot to unpack here, both short-term and long-term. But let's start with the here and now in this game, B-Mac. What really stood out to you in the way that San Francisco managed this game? Because they were playing from behind in the first half there, but it never really seemed in doubt.
Yeah, I love the adjustments that we saw from the 49ers after halftime. Didn't allow 1 point in the second half, so we saw some big-time adjustments from the defensive side. And then offensively, Jimmy Garoppolo started to kind of get into the rhythm. We saw Elijah Mitchell become more of the vocal point in the ground and pound game in the second half. So I like the depth that they have at the running back position. So this team, you don't question the talent. It's all about the execution. I think we're still trying to figure things out. They're still trying to figure things out with CMC, trying to get him acclimated to this new offensive game plan that he's in. But when they get everything rolling on all cylinders, you better understand and know this offense can be deadly.
No, that's right. And the first half, they were plagued by a Brandon Ayuk fumble and a partially blocked punt. In the second half, no mistakes, and they leaned on the running game. And that's been Jimmy Garoppolo's best friend throughout his career, especially since arriving in San Francisco. And as you mentioned, B-Mac, Elijah Mitchell came back, and he looked like he didn't miss a beat. C-Mac didn't do a whole bunch. He had 38 yards on the ground. He had 39 yards receiving on 4 catches. And look, I don't want to be that dude, but I do wonder, could you just kept Jeff Wilson, who had a big day today in Miami, and been better off with the draft picks? I know how versatile Christian McCaffrey can be, and as you know, B-Mac, he'll grow into this role, and Kyle Shanahan is the guy you want dialing up plays. I get all that. But, you know, I got to ask these questions because I'm the draft guy as well. Speaking of draft guys, by the way, Talanoa Hufanga, 5th-round pick. That dude has been balling out since he arrived in San Francisco, and it just goes to show it doesn't matter where you drafted. It's matter what you do when you get to the NFL, and he's proven that he's been much more valuable than that day 3 pick when they got him a few years ago.
Yeah, a couple game-sealing picks already this season by Hufanga. That is straight from our guy, the NFL draft expert, Ryan Wilson, who always values picks over people. But let's talk about some of the people. There's lots of them. You alluded to it, B-Mac. This offense can be so multiple in Kyle Shanahan's vision, but he is playing with some new toys. You're dealing with Mitchell. You're dealing with CMC. You got Ayuk. You got Debo, let's not forget about. You got George Kittle, a guy who really needs to touch the ball a certain number of times per game. What does this offense look like in your mind's eye when you're really projecting it at its final form?
Well, I think they will be more devoted to running the football because of Christian McCaffrey. But then when you look at some of the pass catchers you mentioned, I don't know if there's enough footballs to go around, because when you bring in a guy like Christian McCaffrey, you take opportunities away from Debo Samuel. Yes, Debo Samuel is a wide receiver, but the way they utilize him, especially going back to last year, he was kind of their Christian McCaffrey for their offense a year ago. And then you factor in George Kittle. Don't forget, George Kittle can still ball. He's still considered one of the best tight ends in the game, but he's not getting the opportunities because of some of the other guys they have in the offense. But it's up to Kyle Shanahan. This is what he asked for, and I'm right there with you, Ryan. If you talk about giving so much to get Christian McCaffrey, if you just waited a week or so for Elijah Mitchell to return and you keep Jeff Wilson, maybe this offense is still looking the same. But they have to figure it out because this is what they wanted. They have Christian McCaffrey, who's one of the best offensive weapons in the National Football League. It's just going to take time. So I think by the month of December, we will actually have a nice idea on what this team can look like on the offensive end, because by that time, Christian McCaffrey should be well suited with this game plan.
No, that's right, B-Mac. And I don't want to say, you can count the chickens before they're hatched. In terms of being in the playoff picture in the NFC. But we talked about it earlier this evening. There ain't a bunch of teams pushing the 49ers for that final playoff spot or even the playoff spots 5, 6, and 7. So if you need that time to figure out how to best utilize all these weapons you have at your disposal if you're Kyle Shanahan, that's actually a pretty good problem to have. Look, George Kittle only got 1 catch. Debo only got 2 catches. And look, winning's great, but at some point, these guys might want the ball as well. And as B-Mac noted, there's only one football typically used in a game. So I think the message is, look, we're going to get everyone on the same page. Let us figure all this stuff out. And in the meantime, let's just keep winning football games and make our way to the playoffs. Could they win the division? Maybe. We'll see how Seattle responds once they get back in North America. But I think either way, the 49ers are almost certainly going to be a playoff team. It's just a matter of getting their ducks in a row, to keep the bird analogy going here, ahead of the playoffs.
Yeah, it's very interesting, too, when you look at it relative to the offenses that they've rolled out there in the past. It's never been a feature back. It's always running back by committee.
I know.
You think of the Colemans, the Mosterts, Mitchell. You think of all these guys that run through that offense and them riding the hot hand. Maybe CMC does force them to feature somebody. We do have to talk about the LA side of this conversation as well, because this is the moment that the naysayers are looking for. And Ryan, I'll go to you first on this one. The guy right behind me, he's got all of the skills. He's got every expectation out in front of him, and he had an opportunity here, prime time, on the road, 2-minute drill, and again, not really getting the job done. Yes, you're backed up against your own one, really playing in an adverse situation, but what are you seeing right now out of Herbert? Maybe more specifically, what are you not seeing that you want to?
I tell you what I'm not seeing, healthy playmakers. They were down their top 4 receivers. Gerald Everett, their tight end, wasn't able to play because of a groin injury, so they were leaning on Trey McKinney, who hasn't played a ton of football, DeAndre Carter, who's been a special teamer for the most of his career, Austin Eckler, who's fantastic, but he shouldn't be a number 1 receiver in the NFL. That's a lot to ask of Justin Herbert. And, oh, by the way, hey, officials, how about not you mess up the touchback that you didn't call there at the end of the football game, give him the ball to 20 instead of the 1. But here's the thing. Excuses are for losers. And guess what? The Chargers lost this game. I give them a ton of credit for playing as hard as they did, being as down as many players as they were. But at the end of the day, this ain't JV where you have a moral victory. You got to win football games. I give them a ton of credit for being 5-3 coming into this game. They're 5-4 as we sit here. They have to play on a relatively short week, so they got to figure some things out and get some guys healthy. But not a great showing from Justin Herbert. But I don't know if you put any quarterback in that situation, past or present, and they would have anything close to better success than what Herbert was able to manage.
All right, let's zoom out to 30,000 feet here, guys, because I think it's safe to say that these are 2 teams that do have playoff promise. Now, will both of them be in the playoffs? We shall see how it shakes out. Let's take a look now at that playoff picture in the AFC and maybe offer some broad strokes here, as we do have 2 7-win teams in the Chiefs and the Dolphins who look cemented in that moment. The Titans, I don't know if you can call it a hollow 6-3, but it sure feels like it. Ravens maybe finding their identity and moving forward. B-Mac, as you take a look at this picture right now and then those teams in the hunt, how different do you expect it to be come December, January than what we're looking at right now?
I think we will potentially see some movement at the number 2 spot. I think Buffalo still has a shot, especially with them getting healthier. Dolphins clearly will be in the playoffs, in my opinion. When you look at the Tennessee Titans, I don't see any movement when it comes to the AFC South. They are the best team. Getting Ryan Tannehill back in the fold, I think, would be huge. One team I think that's currently not in this playoff picture that might have a spot in the tournament, the Cincinnati Bengals. I think we could see some movement between Cincinnati and the Chargers.
Okay.
I'm not quite sold on the Chargers. I don't know when they're going to get their wide receivers back. That's one thing. And defensively, they sometimes play soft at the point of attack, especially in the trenches. I like what I'm seeing for Cincinnati, even without Jamar Chase for a few weeks. Defensively, they're rolling. Now they're starting to give the football to Joe Mixon as well. That will make things easier for Joe Burrow at the quarterback position. So I think Cincinnati, when it's all said and done, will find a way to get in that top 7.
I don't think you're the only one with a raised eyebrow when it comes to the Chargers. Do you have anyone marked as fraudulent or anyone really that you like in the second half of the season here, Ryan, to make that push in the AFC?
No, the Chargers have real issues, and the injury issues on both sides of the football, and we didn't talk about it, but B-Mac just brought it up. The defense had no chance in the second half because they were winded, exhausted, and were down a lot of people. So absolutely, they're going to be a team to watch. Here's the thing. I'm concerned.